It's the Rip City Wrap-Up, brought to you by Dick Hanna Subaru. Believe in nice. Here are your hosts, Tyree Smith, Danny Marang, and Joe Simons.
The cure for a losing streak? Why, it's the Toronto Raptors. The Blazers win 105-102, eking one out against Toronto. Hello, welcome into the Rip City Wrap-Up. Joe Simons, Danny Marang with you. Tyree, we will be back later in the week. It wasn't the prettiest basketball game we ever saw, but it was a win for your Blazers. Join in on the conversation. Use the hashtag RCWrapUp. Let us know what you think. It's going to be a very fun program, Danny. We're talking about Blazers from yesteryear later on in the show. We're continuing our countdown of the top 25 Blazers of the 21st century. But let's talk about tonight, the star of the show, the man we've been waiting for, what are we on, game 66 right now? 68? 68? Matisse Thybulle was the guy to seal the victory for the Blazers tonight.
Yeah,
unbelievable.
No, you don't get Tice's debut until the second half, and he comes in, immediately gets a steal, leads to a missed shot, but bounces around off a three-man kick out. Anthony Simons knocks down a three. Right down the other side of it, he gets a second steal just a moment later, and it was kind of one of those Hollywood scripts.
Absolutely. So, hello to those of you watching on K2. This is the Blazers post-game show. It's called the Rip City Wrap-Up. We have a good time here talking about your Blazers for the next hour-ish. Hello to those of you on YouTube and KUNP. We're all over the place today, Danny.
And we're not Barry.
And we're not Barry or Allison. That's Danny, and I'm Joe. I know we want to start with Tice.
Yeah.
So I think many Blazer fans were becoming, frankly, skeptical that we were going to see Tice play basketball this season. And I, frankly, was among them at times.
I had to cajole you a few times.
You cajoled.
Look, I said this when it happened. The level of sprain that Matisse suffered was on the edge of a grade 2, grade 3. Grade 3 is a full tear. And Tice, in his practice availability yesterday, said it was probably the closest thing to a grade 3 that could happen. And he had told me, I want to say back in December, that the injury that he suffered, he was told basically it probably would have been better for him had he just broken his ankle. And
clean break, clean heel.
Because bones, they heal back stronger. Ligaments, when you damage them at that capacity, they take a very long time, and he was already coming off of a knee injury. And with that knee injury, you have issues down the kinetic chain, as it were. So you get instabilities that come up in other areas. And when you're talking about lower body injuries, it's not like you can work out.
Right.
Like, so it's hard.
It's a rest thing. There's nothing you can do to push it or get back in.
Yeah, and if you have instabilities that develop elsewhere, you have to kind of cure those and work within those boundaries. You know, I've had 15 lower body surgeries. I'm a little familiar with that recovery process and kind of what it can do with the imbalances and the things that you have to do. It's brutal when you have severe ligament damage and how the compensation stuff works and having to kind of go through that process to where not only you balance those things back out, but then you work yourself back up, but also there's a trust factor. Now, it's not as severe as like Jusuf Nurkic compound fracture.
A trust in your own body.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Rob Williams about this a lot when he came back off his knee injury because I went through something very similar. And you know, as we started talking, he was like, the hardest thing about this whole process is knowing that when I come down. I remember talking to Rob when he came back in that Minnesota game. He skied for a rebound and he landed very solid, immediately kicked it out, and he didn't look down. Like, he didn't look to stabilize
or land weird.
And when it was on the road in Minnesota. When they got home, I mentioned that to him, and he just lit up and smiled. He was like, "You noticed that?" I'm like, "Man, I was looking for it." You know, like, those are the kind of things you look for when you come off those injuries. He goes, "That was the exact moment I knew that I could start trusting it again." And with Tice, for him to go out there and look like Matisse Thybulle, like Chauncey said in the post-game press conference, he's like, there's nobody else in the league that can cover that amount of ground at his size. You know, he covers 30 feet in basically 2 seconds.
Well, to that point, Calabro says wide open, because when he was saying those words, he was, and out of nowhere, Matisse comes and has the cleanest,
the trail block,
beautiful trail block that you've seen, and it decides the outcome of the game. And I thought it was so fitting, not only for Tice to have that moment in a season, it was nearly lost, but to reinsert him into the type of team that he is tailor-made for. Tough, gritty, defensive plays, sealing the game. Disruptive. Like, I know Tyree has talked about Tice a lot in previous episodes and theorizing when he was going to come back and what he might mean to this team. And you see it almost immediately, the impact that he has. I mean, it's like a glove in hand situation, Marang.
Yeah, no, I really Tease checked in originally for Tumani Kamara, and I was like, I want to see Tease and two out
Sure.
there. Like, give me the Bash Brothers of defense, and just dysfunctional. We can make an opponent look with those two game wreckers out there because they're very, very different defenders. I don't think we talk about defenders the same way we do offensive players. Like, the differences between an Ant and a Scoot, or a Shaden and a Tumani. Like, there's different elements to their game, and when we talk about defense, we just say, oh, he's a good defender. And we don't talk about how Tease is one of the hardest guys to screen in the league because he turns his shoulders so well and he's so slippery. How he's not a great defender in the sense of like sit down in front of you and wall you off. He's a defensive playmaker who Chauncey Billups has given him basically free reign and latitude to take chances and be disruptive because it's he's named after an artist. Matisse is an artist. I can't remember what art world he comes from. He told me, I'm sorry, Matisse, I forget these things. But Tease is he's a bit of a different bird in the sense of like the things that he does.
In the best possible way.
Oh, and he's incredibly thoughtful.
So entertaining.
Like, when you talk about somebody's personality translating to the game, there's probably no more one-to-one than Matisse Thybulle. He's just a different bird. And like the stuff that he does, like he last year before he got hurt and the year before that when he first got here, over that period, he led the NBA in block threes. Like that's a thing that he does because he did exactly what you saw tonight.
There's such specificity with that. And so what does he do in particular that leads to three-pointers? Especially, he's really competent in blocking those shots.
His timing and like knowing when to, if he's leaving his own guy or in a rotation, knowing when to get out of it or taking the risk of like, I know this guy's going to get this shot up. I can leave here. And Tease, I don't think gets the credit for the level of athlete that he is. He's a freak. Like he's not a vertical freak, but he is a burst, close the gap, just get there. And he's incredibly long. And he has this ability to close that gap in 1-2 steps and then get up quickly. And we talk about vertical and we talk about explosion, but there's guys that get off the floor quicker. Tumani Kamara and Shaden Sharp, I believe, are both in the top 5 this year in like the tracking data of the ability to get off the floor the fastest. And it's a different kind of vertical athlete. There's guys that get up and float like Shaden, but also they get up there even quicker. And Tease is another one of those kind of guys that is a bursty athlete, and you see it kind of demonstrate in those kind of plays.
Friends, we're just getting started here on the Rip City Wrap-Up. So much more to come. Chris Murray had a nice night. Ant did some things. Shea. Don was big down the stretch, making that clutch free throw. We're going to take a break, come back with much more. Stay tuned. It's the Rip City Wrap-Up. Welcome back into the Rip City Wrap-Up. Joe, Danny with you. It's the post-game show for the Portland Trail Blazers, and the Blazers won a basketball game today.
They did.
Thanks in large part to Tumani Kumara.
Yeah, I mean, you go down the list of guys who contributed tonight, and there's the usual actors. It's it's Denny, it's Shaden, it's Ant. But tonight, too, career high 5 of 10 from 3. Some big defensive plays, 3 offensive rebounds. 2 of those offensive rebounds leading to kickouts to Anthony Simons for some big threes. I mean, 2's box score tonight. 21 points, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks. I mean,
full.
And we're burying the lead here, Joe. You were in the building tonight.
I was in the building. Is that the lead?
Yeah, sure. Come on. You haven't been in the building for a while.
No, it was very exciting to be in the building. It was a really good crowd. I was a little bit stunned how pro-Canada the crowd was. They migrated south for this one.
So Vancouver, the city of Vancouver, Canada, migrates. I mean, because got to remember, Toronto is Canada.
Vancouver, BC.
Yes, Vancouver, BC.
Of course, not Southwest Washington.
Well, I mean, they might too. Listen, if you love the Blazers, great. If not,
or the Raptors.
It's whatever. But all of Canada descends. This is a pretty typical thing. They come down en masse. But you got to pitch Donovan Clingan on Block Lobster a little bit.
Yeah, so Danny couldn't resist. Don was sitting on the bench, and Marang's like, "Hey, come here." And so I was like, he's like, "Hey, Donovan, this is Joe Simons, the co-host of the show with me." Shook his hand, very, very nice, very, very kind.
Yes.
He's like, this is the Block Lobster guy. That was Marang. And I was like, all right, so Don, come on. And I immediately launched into it. So Donovan.
Full sell.
No one showed you the song? Like, no one, and he's kind of like,
nah, I got nothing for you.
And I was like, well, thank you so much for being generous to me on Danny's podcast about it. And he goes, I got you. So
and you also
that was good enough.
You got to see just how massive a human being
he is. Enormous. Yeah. Our hands are different sizes. He almost like
he grabs the forearm.
It's like the Andre the Giant picture where he's holding like a regular beer can, but it looks like a miniature can in his hand. He is an enormous man.
Yeah. No, and he contributed tonight on the defensive effort with 2. Don finishes with 14 rebounds, 7 offensive. You get 10 offensive rebounds between Don and 2. And that's the things. The offensive rebound rate of those 2 guys, they're quite literally 2 of the best in the entire NBA at their positions, depending on what day you look at. So going into this game, Tumani Kamara is in the 96th percentile of offensive rebound rates for wings. And this is after being in the 94th percentile last year for wings.
So I don't want to be uncharitable to my new pal, Donovan Clingan.
Go on.
Very, very sweet young man. Is there an analytic or an advanced stat that weeds out offensive rebounds that you are generating yourself?
If I dig into it, yes, I can get it. But he also does. I mean,
I'm not taking away. I'm just saying that there is a certain percentage.
Yeah.
Yes.
But right now he's in the 95th percentile in offensive rebound rate among bigs, 98th percentile in blocks, and I believe he finished the night with 3 again, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. So you had 3 blocks from him, 2 blocks from 2. Those are 2 pretty darn good defensive building blocks. But I asked Chauncey Billups about Tumani Kamara tonight after the game. Did you ever think that Tumani could develop into this consistent of a shooter? Because his career high 5 made 3s for him tonight. And Chauncey's answer was yeah. I mean, mechanically, he's sound, and that was always been the case. He was inconsistent last year, and I think you see these same things pop up this year with both Scoot and Shaden. Really with Scoot last year, as he started, his three-point shooting is corrected in much the same way that Two's has, and I think it was due to the same thing. And I was watching some threes from Tumani's rookie season, actually against these Toronto Raptors. I believe they played them in Game 3 last year to start the season when they went out. And number 1, 2 was about 15 or 20 pounds lighter.
Sure.
That was the first thing I was like, man, he's so much skinnier just a year ago. He's put on the grown NBA muscles. But as I watched his threes, the thing that stood out was sometimes he's a little bit lean. He doesn't have his feet set. He had noisy feet. To kind of paraphrase that, you don't get your feet firmly planted, your base over your knees, your hips over your knees, everything in a line. You do
it's like Peyton Manning under pressure.
Yeah,
he gets the happy feet below him a little bit.
And Scoot did a lot of that, and he had a lot of off-balance leaning. You do most of your work as a catch-and-shoot three-point shooter before the shot. You want to get there, get your feet right, get your hips right, whether you've got if you're a tilt shooter or if you're a square shooter, depending like your shoulders, and get your hands up. But if you watch too off ball, he's sitting there like this, hands up, butt down, ready to go. And he's actually started to do not a full no dip like Jeremy. Chris Murray's employed it too.
Can you explain that a little bit for the viewers? Because that is a phrase that gets bounced around.
Yeah, so a lot of times you get what's called a dip. And if you're a catch and shoot guy like two, you're sitting in the corner, that ball hits the pocket and you dip down. You see the butt go down and you use that rhythm to generate the power to get the shot.
That's the first move to initiate the motion, basically.
And if you watch Jeremy, and I know Jeremy's like, oh, he's having it down here. He's shooting 37% from three. Like, he's like, quick little thing on Jeremy. Everybody talking about Jeremy having a bad year. He's been bad inside the three-point line. He's 37% on volume. That's entirely fine.
Fashion's still great.
Oh, my God, he was killing it tonight.
Voluminous tonight.
My goodness.
Unbelievable.
He walked in, and I smiled. I'm like, buddy.
Yeah.
Easy. He just started
a little
laughing.
Too much sauce for a Sunday afternoon.
Yeah,
there are children in the crowd,
come on,
Jeremy.
Man. But he's basically shot 40% from three in Portland, and a big part of that is his ability to generate shots. So the ball hits in the pocket, and it's no dip, and it just goes straight up, which gives you that extra split second to get the shot up without even the defender having an opportunity to close
the process starts more quickly.
Yes, and so you see Chris employing it, and I've seen two shorten his dip down a little bit, but the big thing mechanically for him has been just quieting everything. He hasn't really changed much in his jump shot. He's taken some of the superfluous movement out of it, the extra stuff. When most jumpers in the NBA, the better ones are the more simple. And look, and we've stopped doing the whole Ray Allen, JJ Redick, like perfect jump shot. Like, you can have different jump shots. But watch Dame, Ant, Steph, these guys that are more push shooters, and it's like 20 years ago, you're like, you shouldn't shoot like that. But now you see guys that are doing that. I think two is a big beneficiary of just getting reps and the ability for them to rely on him. Like Chauncey said in the postgame, if we get an opportunity where Tumani Kamara has an open three, that's a good shot for us. That's another kind of notch in the developmental belt, as it were.
So much more to come on Rip City Wrap-Up. Who is the 16th best Blazer of the 21st century? Well, you're going to have to stay tuned to find out. It's the Rip City Wrap-Up, presented by our friends over at Dick Subaru. Stay tuned. It's the Rip City Wrap-Up, our post-game show for the Portland Trailblazers. Danny, Joe, Blazers win. They outlast Toronto, snapped their losing streak. Danny, do you know winter is still here?
It is still here, despite it being quite nice outside, Joe.
Yeah, it is. It is nice, but technically it is still winter. It is the
Spring.
perfect time to check out the new 2025 Subaru models rolling in every day over at Dick Hanna Subaru. Subaru delivers with that lifetime powertrain warranty on every new car. Experience nice in the car business at Dick Hanna Subaru. Believe in nice. Visit them today and see why a Subaru is perfect for the season. And your next big assist, okay, we're doing a countdown of the top 25 Blazers of the 21st century. 21st century, no Clyde, no Bill.
No Mo.
No Mo. Number 16 on the list, Jusuf Nurkic.
Hey.
Nurk made it at number 16.
Bosnian Beast.
This feels right. I think at certain times in his tenure, you could argue that he should be higher, perhaps a little bit lower, but he has to be in this top 20 range,
The
Dan.
month of basketball leading up to his injury would have put him in the top 10.
No question. You
He
look
was-
at that season.
I remember
18,
being
19.
like, my goodness, he's 20, 12, and 5. He was absolutely hooping. You know, when he breaks his leg against the Brooklyn Nets, I mean, that was the beginning of the end for Nurk. He was a guy who relied on his power and his strength, and it took him forever. And to be honest, I don't think he ever fully trusted his leg again. And look, I've been down that actual path, and it's not fun, and it's a brutal injury, and it takes forever to come back from. And
Well, dude, it's the kind of injury where when it happened, you're thinking to yourself, at least I was, and we did a show that night
yeah,
on our old network, and all we did was talk about Nurk for an hour.
Yeah.
That's all we did. But when you watch that live, it was the sort of injury where you're like, well, I don't really care about basketball.
No.
Is this guy going to be able to have a normal life again?
like, is he,
That's where your mind
yeah,
goes.
Is
It's
he
that
going to be able to
gruesome.
walk normally? Like, you know, and not to make this about me. Like, I've been through this. I know what this is like, and the absolutely ridiculous recovery process that comes with this. And it was really frustrating because, you know, Nurk had his 25.5 by 5 game against the Sacramento Kings, like leading up to it. I mean, he was just a monster. And the crazy thing about Nurk was when the Trailblazers traded Mason Plumlee, it was to get the first-round pick from the Denver Nuggets. In order to get said first-round pick, they had to take the disgruntled Bosnian beast because he was butting heads because he was drafted ahead of Nikola Jokic.
Stuck behind him, though.
And stuck behind
For
him. And
obvious reasons.
Look, I had basically every single person in Denver like, he's angry and he does not want to be here. And so the stipulation was, hey, you take him, we'll give you the first. Nurk came here and balled out, and the Bosnian Beast took over. Gets to send the Denver Nuggets home with the "Have a nice summer" line. He embraced everything. Him and Dame
That
had that
silly commercial that he was in. It was
God,
unbelievable.
just
The coffee
fantastic
commercial.
stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, but him and Dame forged a
yes.
symbiotic relationship, and he looked at Dame like a brother, Bobo. You know, I remember having a conversation with Nurk one time, but something not even Damian Lillard related, and he got mad at me because other media members he felt had treated Damian Lillard unfairly, and I was like, Nurk, that wasn't me. He goes,
Right.
I know. Like, look, for all of Nurk's shortcomings or warts as a basketball player, particularly post-injury, as a human being, you would be hard-pressed to find somebody who cares more about people than Jusuf Nurkic.
I completely agree, and I think Nurk, and I'm going to read a tweet that I wrote. I think I was like listening to a lot of Elliott Smith and was probably a bottle of wine in when I
Cabernet?
concocted this. Usually a Pinot,
Oh, yeah.
Willamette Valley. What I said was, and again, this is 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Since his arrival in Portland, Nurk has personified the experience of Blazers fandom. Extreme fleeting highs, crushing lows, and the sense that salvation is just out of reach.
Mm-hmm.
Now, that's a very dark sentiment, but I do think that it sort of encapsulates Nurk, because a lot of what we were putting on him was, I don't want to say unfair, Dan, but he had to live up to a very high standard because I think in part
Because his highs were so high.
his highs were so high, but when LA had his departure, there was this sense that, all right, Dame is going to be paired with another star. Like CJ was, a fringe all-star guy, but never ascended at that level. And it's like Nurk's level of play going into that injury, it was ascending. It's difficult not to play the game of what ifs with a lot of Portland Trailblazers, but in recent history, Nurk is at the top of the list.
Yeah, no, in the immediacy for sure. And look, I mean, We talk about Nurk, and the unfortunate thing is he was not a part of that Western Conference Finals run.
It's a shame
because obviously Enes Kanter came in and had his own kind of heroic moments, playing through Ramadan for a month and with a separated shoulder against the Thunder and the Nuggets, and he never got to have the moment that he that he deserved.
Kind of that big tentpole, like this is Nurk's time. Like there were little
Especially
moments
against
throughout.
the Nuggets, like where he could have really
exactly
poked away at it.
It takes, I would say, probably one more glass of that Pinot Noir to just get me going to where, look, if the Blazers had Nurk in those Western Conference Finals, the Kevin Durant-less Golden State Warriors, I think they win that series.
There you go.
Danny won't agree with that. We're going to take another break. We're going to come back with more. What was Toronto doing at the end of that game? That look a little fishy to you folks out there? Stunk to us. We're going to talk about that next on Rip City Wrap-Up. Stay tuned. Welcome back into the Rip City Wrap-Up, the post-game show for your Portland Trail Blazers basketball club. That's Danny. I'm Joe. Your Blazers won today, maybe due in part to some funny business from the Raptors of Toronto, the team named after Jurassic Park. A little bit unethical today, perhaps, Dan?
Not quite as unethical as bringing dinosaurs back to life, but we'll hit that another day. Look, I get tanking is a very real thing. The organization behind me has taken part, but if you're going to be egregious, be egregious. Sit guys or don't. Don't sit there and yank Scotty Barnes and Jakob Poeltl in a 1-point game with 2 minutes to go. That's nasty work.
Is that kind of like nasty work to the degree that Adam Silver and some emails are being exchanged?
I would imagine.
It's so blatant.
Look, I'd rather them be blatant.
But
don't play Scotty, don't play Pirtle, and then just go from there. If you're going to go get your experience for your rookies, your 10 days and your 2 ways, look, man, we watched John Butler play point guard for the Trailblazers in a game. I am not here to cast aspersions on the levels of chasing potential ping pong balls that are out there. It's fine, but this is gross because organizations tank, players don't. Those guys played and built a lead, and now you took the opportunity off the table for them to close out a game and win. That's nasty. I don't like that.
No, it's nasty because it's situational.
Yeah.
Like if you're doing it before the game,
go in with it.
Then there is some plausible deniability in there.
Not only that, your guys know what the deal is going into the game. If they're going to play them.
That's a really good point. It's a difficult thing to do to the players, the ones being yanked and the ones being inserted, because you feel like, well, what are we actually trying to do here? Because you feel like, why would I give effort? And Toronto, for as bad as their record is and their season has been, they've been pretty game recently. Like they won a few games in a row.
They won 6 out of 7, but also take a look at who they
of course.
played.
Look, I understand. Sometimes it's, pillow fights out there, right? I get it. But that was a very bizarre thing to see, and a lot of fans reacted on social media
it was nasty
about that. It's like, okay, the Blazers won, but they beat a team that isn't very good, to begin with, and then did that at the end.
Look,
you got to play us under schedule.
We've seen teams do this kind of stuff before and sneak a win. It does happen.
Sure.
Like, it's still NBA players. I remember with about 3 minutes to go, I go, "Where's Pirtle?" I was like, because they've got 2 large whites
who was having his way.
He's so good. But I was like, and then Sean Hyken next to me was like, "Where's Scotty?" And I went, "Oh, you dirtbags!
Yeah.
This is nasty."
They did it.
So it's not great, Bob.
And we're going to review tanking and what it all entails and what this win means for the Blazers in terms of the 10th seed and the number 1 pick. That's all coming up. Stay with us. It's the Rip City Wrap-Up. Toronto, welcome back to Rip City Wrap-Up, the post-game show for the Portland Trail Blazers. Dan Marang, Joe Simons here with you. Blazers win. They beat Toronto. They snapped their losing streak. Danny, every game, win or loss, is good and bad, depending on who you are and what you're rooting for this season. Let's pull up the Blazer box. We're going to look at Tankathon. Now, folks, if you don't follow the Trailblazers closely, here's what's happening, okay? The Blazers have won more games than we thought they were going to win. But they still have an opportunity to land the #1 pick, which was ostensibly the goal going into the season. So this number, all the way over here on the far right-hand side, 3%, that is their chance currently of obtaining the #1 pick. They have a 14% chance at getting a top 4 pick. Danny, they were up here before this game, and now they're down here. It is a razor-thin margin with these 4 teams right now.
Between the Bulls, Spurs, Blazers, and Miami Heat, who coincidentally enough have the same amount of wins as the Portland Trail Blazers. Crazy that just incredible culture down in Miami and in the Eastern Conference. You've lost 7 straight. Just bravo.
Good job, everybody.
Let's do everybody a little. Let's do a little something here.
Go ahead. Show me.
Let's run.
Oh, no.
Where's the arrow at?
You're going to sim the lottery?
I'm going to sim the lottery.
Oh, God.
Just to see
this
what
is a
happens.
simulation.
So there you go.
And Portland gets the
nothing
10th
happens.
pick.
But in this situation, the Chicago Bulls at that 8 spot, where they have a 26% chance of moving in the top 4, go to second.
The virtual ping pong balls decreed
But that
that.
just kind of shows you.
Yes, anything can happen. Let's do it one more time. That was kind of fun, hitting that button.
It's fun to hit the button.
Let's do it. What's happening here?
What
do we got?
It's airing out.
What do we got? Portland's still at 10th. So there you go. We're stuck at 10. And guess what?
And nobody moved up there.
It's still a good draft.
Yeah.
Like, you're going to get a pretty good player at 10, right? You're going to get a player at 10, right?
Yeah.
You're going to get a basketball
I'd say the
player at 10.
drop-off happens probably in the 8, 9, 10 range.
Sure.
There's a bit of a grab bag, eye of the beholder. Don't get me wrong. There's always players that come out of that draft range.
Well, and real quick here, Joe, don't we want them to win? Kind of, because as Danny likes to point out, the all-important loss column, they are 3 back right now of Dallas, and if you make one of the top 10 seeds in the Western Conference, you are eligible for postseason play. You're eligible for the play-in. The rub with that is, if the Blazers play in a playoff series, they forfeit their first-round pick.
They have to win in the play-in.
Correct.
And become a top
playoff
8
series.
Playoff.
Correct.
Yeah, so if they advance beyond the play-in, they would then have to convey their pick to the said Chicago Bulls. So here's what's important, though. The Blazers play the Spurs and the Bulls directly.
Yes.
They can impact those odds. And look, if you want to get egregious with some tanking, those are where you can find it.
Okay, we're going to take one more break, come back. We're playing the Wizards tomorrow. What does that mean? Welcome back into the Rip City Wrap-Up. Dan Marang, Joe Simons here with you. Blazers victorious at home over the lowly Raptors of Toronto. 105-102 is the final.
You know, they say, Joe, when you go low, I go lower, which is exactly what's going to happen tomorrow as the Blazers take on the Washington Wizards. Despite putting together a little winning streak.
I mean, the Middleton Marcus Smart version of this team, a little bit of juice.
Oh, no way. Add some semblance of NBA player to the roster made them better? Who could have seen it coming? But veteran stabilization, so they aren't an embarrassment every time they step out on the court?
It is another situation, though, where, and it would obviously be worse if it's Washington as opposed to Toronto, who you're a lot closer to in the standings, but a loss to Washington at home would
physically be painful.
Gutting.
Yeah, it's not one you want to lose, but it also is one you kind of want to lose in a sense if you're talking about ping pong balls. Big part of it recently over the last 5 games, number 2 overall pick, Alex Sarr for the Wizards, 17 points, 8 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 blocks. He's figuring it out.
Yeah, that's exciting, though, for Washington and the league.
From 3.
So we're winding down here on K2. America's Funniest Home Videos will be coming up.
With who, Joe?
With Alfonso Ribeiro.
Oh, there you go.
Carlton from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air fame. That's correct. We're going to continue on KUNP and YouTube if you want to learn more about your Portland Trail Blazers. And why wouldn't you? This team is a scrappy bunch. They're fun. We're also going to do the number 15 on our list of the Trailblazers. Well, I was hoping you would confirm. So what you're supposed to do with your television partner? You're supposed to help him out a little bit. Just leave him hanging for dead. Yeah, anyway, we're going to do number 15 on the Trailblazers of the 21st century. Thank you so much for joining us if you watched on K2 today. We really appreciate it. And again, we're continuing on KUNP and YouTube. Thanks. And we're back. Hi.
The miracles of technology.
Thank you, you diehards out there. First of all, if you're watching on YouTube, we know the screen's going black for a couple minutes at a time. We were on the big channel there for a second. You know, there were some bills to pay. We gotta get those commercials.
That's how these things go.
But now it's just us. And you know what, Danny? The night is just getting started. That's right. It's just getting started, Marang. It's Sunday. It's fun day, right? The game's over. But hey, you know what you need? Yeah, to keep those good vibes going with our friends over at Best Day Brewing, the fastest growing non-alcoholic craft beer brand. It's the post-game play. That's right, we get to enjoy a great beer without worrying about tomorrow, so celebrating this afternoon's win doesn't need alcohol. You know that, Dan. Fans, make every day your best day. Find your nearest Best Day Brewing retailer at bestdaybrewing.com. We've done Nurk.
We also have bills to pay here.
We sure do. And we've done it. Jusuf Nurkic was number 16 on the list. Number 15 on the list is in that Patty Mills division of this guy didn't play here for 8 years because it sure feels like it. Cult hero of older millennials and Gen Xers alike, Andre Miller. Beloved Portland Trailblazer. Only here for 2 seasons.
A player who I patterned my own basketball game.
Oh, is this the game?
There it is. Just 52 glorious points without a single 3.
And this was the highest scoring game in Blazers history for a while, was it not?
I believe so. I think Brandon ended up passing him up with 1, and then Dame had, obviously,
a pile.
71.
Yeah.
Which is pretty good.
That's more.
Andre Miller, this game was insane. Because, look, it's just 18-footers. Just death by 18-footers and post footwork. And this is a really good Mavs team. This is that's Jason Kidd, that's Jason Terry, that's Dirk Nowitzki, that's Eric Dampier, Josh Howard. This is a stupidly good basketball team. Remember, title winner.
I was going to say that's the title team we're looking at.
I believe this is the 10-11 season, so it would have been.
If not there, it's
the year before.
Pretty darn close.
Yeah, I mean, again, this was a very good Dallas Mavericks team, and